Hello, welcome back to Talk Seagulls. And yeah, okay, we're in different surroundings. We're not at one of the pubs today, but I hope you can all bear with it for the sake of this one. It's all a bit of a tight turnaround with the fixtures and all this, so this will have to do a bit more of an intimate video. But look, I do quite like these. I mean, you guys seemed to like it last time, so if you're happy with it, you got to bear with me this time. But yeah, I really do appreciate, before we get into this video, all the love and support that Talk Seagulls has had this season. I really do appreciate every single one of you. Of course, it's been a bit different. Talk Seagulls, a bit of a new project in terms of what it's doing on a video capacity. But if you are liking the videos, are enjoying the channel, please do drop a like, comment and subscribe. I really do appreciate all of the support, as I said before. But let's talk about the difficult bit now, shall we? Because yeah, we're on the back of a couple of bad results. It's not been one of the easiest couple of weeks, let's say. I mean, we've had the international break in between that. I think it was about 23 of our players went off in that as well. So we've had a bit of a weird time without football, and coming back into it, we've struggled, let's put it that way. Now, let's start off with the Nottingham Forest thing, because the Forest result was tough to take, as well as obviously the way it came about. Obviously, Nottingham Forest, the 7-0, it was very much in the heads of pretty much most fans that went to that game, and we're worried, let's put it that way. We're worried about playing them. And losing on penalties is never easy. Brighton and penalties, two of the things that should never go together. Similarly to England, really. I just never fancy us. And when you see someone like Jack Hinchelwood step up, or even Diego Gomez, you know, a very young player that's not really adapted to life here yet, it was very hard to watch them miss them, I've got to be honest. Especially Jack, the local boy, of course. Local boys taking penalties for us. It just flashed me straight back to Solly March at Wembley and at Charlton as well, if you remember that one. And it's just one of those things where, yeah, you feel for him. And it's going to be a big learning curve for him. I think he was maybe suffering a bit of a hangover, particularly in the beginning of the game last night against Villa. You know, that penalty, which in my opinion was a penalty, to be honest. Sorry if everyone disagrees with me, but I do think that we got away with one there. And he could have been sent off, to be honest. And yeah, in general, the game just wasn't great. But for Jack especially, yeah, a lot of support needed. I hope everyone gives him all that support too. And the same with Diego Gomez. Of course, he has travelled all the way to Paraguay, he's played a lot of football, he's been travelling thousands and thousands of miles. And the amount of players that travelled so much distance, in particular Purvis Stepinian, who I think has travelled about 15,000 miles, played around 3 or 4 90-minute games and the 120-minute game the other day. After all of that, though, you start to wonder why he didn't take a penalty. You know, it is what it is. That game's done. We fast-forwarded on to Aston Villa, and it was a chance for us, really, wasn't it? It was a chance for us to prove that, you know, that's in the past and we can move on from this Forest result again. And it just seemed a bit of a low-energy game. Maybe we were a little bit puffed, and maybe you could say the same about the Villa players as well, but you know, there wasn't really enough energy, enough fight in that team really to really see that through. I thought first half we were better than them probably. Second half, you know, I think they just took us apart. I think where I say we're better than them in the first half, I think we were, but maybe not to the extent where we could have exactly punished them for it. And I don't think there was too many goals foreseeable, apart from that Yasin Ayari, obviously very good free kick. And, you know, you start to think, okay, let's hope this doubt doesn't set in now. Let's hope we don't go through anywhat of a rut, because that's the last thing we need at this period of the season, you know. Really going into this European race now. This is the business end of the season, as they like to call it. And this is the point where you need your players to be in the best form they physically can be. And this is the end of the season, really. This could determine everything. And without anything else to worry about now, we're out of all of the cup competitions. I really want to see us go for this. And the teams around us obviously are very inconsistent too. And, you know, you start to think, okay, Europa League, Champions League. Champions League may be a little bit too far away for us, if I'm being honest. I think even just naivety-wise could be a little bit of a reach, a bit of a step too far. But particularly when it comes to Europa League, you know, that's where the club has wanted to get back to. And, you know, I've been quite consistent all season, I think, with my opinions and saying I want us to not drop that expectation. I don't want us to start thinking, oh, well, you know, it'll be okay if we don't. You know, we've gone for it. I think we've spent a lot of money. We've proven over the years that we can do this sort of run. And that's really all there is to it. I think that Brighton are a team that should be and can be in the Europa League. And that's not an arrogant thing to say anymore. We're a very, very good side. So for me, seeing that performance last night, it's tough. It's very raw still. Yeah, maybe you could say, I saw people saying it wasn't a 3-0 game. If I'm honest, I thought if Villa really wanted to, they could have scored a few more. They've got an absolutely brilliant squad. You see the likes of Asensio, Marcus Rashford, Marlon coming off the bench as well. Rashford, of course, had to get his goal against us. Otherwise, the whole world would just collapse if he didn't score against Brighton. You've got to say fair play for the way they did it. It was, maybe not a pretty game overall, but they've taken their chances when they've come up. And I think once our heads went down getting caught on that counter-attack, I really think that it was just maybe that's where their naivety and the doubt was coming from, perhaps, and it manifested itself similarly really to the game against Forest, but luckily for us not quite as bad in terms of damage actually done. But it definitely gave me a similar sort of throwback to that game. You've not seen that sort of Brighton for a while. We've not, we've been quite consistent with the amount of wins and decent performances we've been putting in, and I've given credit for all of those. But of course, it's one of the games that you come back to, and it's this one, and it's a shame. And I really hope that we do turn it round, of course. So this is the bit for me, right? And this is probably the main point of the video, which I'll let everyone else decide what they think of this, because when it comes to midfield, realistically, Brighton have stacked it out this season. We've gone with Matt O'Reilly, we've gone with Max Wiefer, we've gone with Carlos Baleba. We've got such a stacked midfield. Yasin Ayari's broke into the side. That it's such a strong team. And, losing obviously Baleba and Jorginho in the way we did. I know Baleba's was just a resting, but Jorginho's obviously should keep him out for the rest of the season if you believe the press conference this week. We've got a very good in the middle of the park squad, as we do on the wings. Obviously, we didn't see too much of Mitoma and Minte yesterday. Minte, of course, was completely rested. But overall, the amount of quality and depth you've got there, you start to wonder, okay, why are we not utilising that as much as maybe we should be? And that's probably been my frustration, perhaps, of the season. When you've got such a good quality midfield who are all very, very good on the ball as well. Matt O'Reilly is meant to be this player that's very, very comfortable on the ball, and it's unfortunate for him in the way his season's panned out with the injury so early on. And he had that unbelievable moment against City when he finally got back into the squad, had a couple more injuries, of course. And, for his sake, it's been a bit of a difficult one. Max Wiefer came into the side really early and had that obvious mistake. And, it feels like maybe we're just misprofiling these players, not playing them to their strengths. Now, of course, with Fabian Hurtzler's football, he likes to empty this midfield. He likes to overload up front. He likes to keep the wings quite wide and use the half spaces up front. And, don't get me wrong, it works when it works. It's a really good way of winning games, especially when you can overpower a team, especially when you can catch them out on the counter. And you really saw that against Chelsea, for example, in those two games recently, which turned around our luck. You've got teams like Villa, you've got teams like Forest. These are teams that know how to deal with that. Murillo, for example, Milenkovic, you're going to eat up those balls over the top every single week. And, that's not even going to be a problem for them. And I don't even think we had a shot on target against Forest until the second half of extra time, if I'm right in saying. So then you start to think, okay, right, there's got to be another way forward here. You can't just keep doing a similar style of thing and passing it sideways and trying to put it out to the wings in hope that you can either get a ball across or you have a shot from the edge of the box or some sort of equivalent. Maybe you're trying to get a free kick off. But that style of play, obviously, it limits the amount of potential that you've got within the squad. And I think that's probably been my frustration. I think, and I put that he's got to go thing, and everyone was like, oh, Ryan, what are you talking about? I wanted to almost address it in the way of saying, this is what I mean in terms of this squad is very good individually at what they're good at, and that is playing through that midfield. I think if you were to then use, say, for example, a De Zerbi or a Graham Potter tactic of, utilising the possession, pushing forward in the way we used to, really receiving the ball quite deep as we used to. I think on the half turn, even on the full turn, to be honest, our team in general is very, very capable of receiving the ball quite deep under pressure. And that's probably one thing we haven't utilised anywhere near enough when you're trying to play through the middle. When you're trying to then even use your wings, and that's when Mitoma and Minte can, overload. You can then get Purvis and Stepinian involved too. Tarek Lamptey, as we know, is so good on the overload as well. And I think that we've maybe not quite had that. I said overload, I should have said overlap, but you get the point. And I think that's really, for me, the frustration perhaps in where we could be and where we are. Of course, it's a very young team, as we've always said. It's a young side that's going to take a lot of time. I give a lot of credit to someone like Brian Gruder, for example, who's openly very, not unsure, but, he's taken a while to get into this side. It's a lot of an adaptation process, especially for young players who are coming from abroad and they're coming over to England and, adapting to life here. And, you need to take into consideration with, as much as the data gives you what you can see with these players, at the end of the day, they're people, they're human beings, they're young people, they're young human beings. And I can imagine if I or anybody else that's similar age to me, who is actually older than some of these players, it would be a struggle for you to then go over to South America for life. And that's how life's got to be. And you've got to then settle into that culture. It's a massive shock. But of course, with that, then you need to balance the squad across. You need to maybe play to their strengths. If players need a loan, they get it. And historically, that's what Brighton have been so good at and continue to be. I think that's maybe the one thing that we've perhaps suffered with a little bit this season is that naivety, losing the likes of Pascal Gross, the whole coaching team, Adam Lallana. You get that hangover perhaps of the amount of quality you had. And maybe that's just where we are, and that's what it will be. For me, still want to get to Europe. I don't want to drop the expectation on that, even with the injuries and even with what I've mentioned so far in this video. But that's really, I think, where it's at for us. I think if we can start to utilise the team a bit more, as much as it doesn't matter about performance towards the end of the season, which I can completely accept, it still would be nice to see us, say if this XYZ doesn't work, that you've then got plan B, you've got plan C, and that's then where you've got your, that's where the points are coming from. We can switch it into that, which in Fabian Hertz's credit this season, particularly early on, he was very, very good with that adaptation process, that switching it up when we needed to. Remember that Newcastle game shortly after trying to play through Ipswich, we then went completely the other way around and managed to grind out a 1-0 win away from home. And that's the sort of Brighton we maybe need to be towards the end of the season. But going forward, we want to see that style of play. Hopefully we get to see it a little bit more. We definitely saw it in patches in that run of about 6 games. Hopefully we can emulate that towards the end of the season. Let me know what you think as well in the comments. I'll be really keen. I know it's a really big divide on social media at the moment. It's like, oh, you got Son that Hurtzler in, you got Hurtzler out, you got, tactics of this. And it seems like you can almost slander everybody apart from the manager, which, to be honest, is the last thing I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to give it quite a constructive argument, I suppose you would say. And finally on that, Aaron Cashin, my friend, oh God, really not a good debut, right? It wasn't a good debut. He would probably in himself say that was terrible. Although I did leave a comment on his recent Instagram, because you can't just DM these players anymore like you used to be able to. So I had to leave a comment. I just feel like maybe he's only very young. I think that was a big shock for him coming into that game. When you put on a player like that in that scenario, it was a big amount of the players that we substituted on in the 60th minute and beyond. It's you're taking up the spine of your team. It's a massive shift. It's a big change, especially for defenders to then keep up with the pace of the game. I think bringing in someone that's never played in the Premier League before, it was a big shock for him, put it that way. And I'm not going to cover it up. I'm not going to say it was a good performance, because it wasn't, for Cashin's sake, but I'm just going to urge, lay off him. I've seen some comments, lay off him. It's all right. Aaron, if you're watching this, my friend, just don't do it again, but you'll be back. Keep working hard, mate. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been a very different video, I can appreciate. It feels quite weird talking to camera in this respect, so let me know if you do like in the comments below. I'll see you very soon. Thank you all for the support, and hopefully roll on Palace and let's get a win there. Up the Albion, and goodbye. Thank you.